RFK Jr. had a fundraiser over the weekend in New York, and obviously the topic of vaccines came up because everybody has a one-track mind in regards to RFK. Like, the guy's got an entire platform, and like it or not, he's well thought out and, well-versed in a whole bunch of different topics, but no, everybody's ridiculous, and they only want to ask him about the vaccine, of course, and, he ended up going on to his, standard fare when it comes to this stuff. That's very well nuanced. If you want more on that, I've got a video popping out on Rumble where we dive specifically into his conversations about that and opine about a couple of things as well, but I won't get into that for very obvious reasons because we're down here on YouTube. But if you want to check that out, well, of course, go for it. What is making headlines and the reason that all of his doofy ass, couple of generations removed family members, including, I don't know, his flumpy sister wants to come forward and say that, oh, he made some deplorable comments. Well, which ones are you concerned about? Because I read what he said in totality, and it's like, no, totally all makes sense. But what was the unspeakable sin that he ended up committing? Well, we're going to speak on it. Democratic presidential candidate RFK Jr.'s sister called him out Monday for saying what he called his deplorable and untruthful remarks about the Coof Kennedy, the nephew of President John F. Kennedy, yes, and son, I think, of Attorney General Robert Kennedy. Like, that one's pretty important as well, but okay. It's challenging President Joe Biden in the 2024 Democratic presidential primary is facing backlash for tweeting that the virus was ethnically targeted. No, oh my god, the comments are a little bit more nuanced than that, and spared Jewish and Chinese people. The New York Post reported over the weekend. COVID-19, there is an argument that it is ethnically targeted. COVID-19 attacks certain races disproportionately. See how the additional context kind of changes all of that stuff? Kennedy Jr. said during the press event at the Upper East Side restaurant Tony di Napoli, the Post reported, COVID-19 is targeted to attack Caucasians and black people. People that are most immune are Ashkenazi Jews and Chinese. Yeah, you can specifically look at the data and parse that out for yourself. I don't know, odd coincidence, but could it require more research? Well, yeah, of course, because we know in general, viruses and diseases can have different outcomes based on your racial background. Just, hey, you want a little thought experiment right there? Take a look at sickle cell anemia. Who does that basically exclusively target? Is that racist? Is that deplorable and untruthful for me to point that out? Frankly, I don't care. Those are the facts. In a world of emotionality, the language of empiricism is deemed to be hateful. Oh well. Kerry Kennedy, his sister and president of the RFK Human Rights Organization. Yeah, I don't know how well that ends up reading. The president of the RFK Human Rights Organization condemns RFK. You don't really know. Optically, that's a bit of a miss. Condemned his comments in a statement. What did she focus on? I strongly condemn my brother's deplorable and untruthful remarks last week about COVID being engineered for ethnic targeting. His statements do not represent what I believe or what RFK Human Rights stands for. This is our 50-year track record of protecting rights and standing against racism and all forms of discrimination. How is it racist to just point out facts? Okay, do you want to do something else? Let's do 1352. A Kennedy spokesperson on Monday afternoon pointed Newsweek to the candidate's previous response. Kennedy wrote on Twitter on Saturday that the Post story was mistaken and that he never ever said the coup was targeted to spare Jews, and that's what ended up being the trigger point, because he ended up touching the third rail. I've pointed this out in a political context as well. There are a couple of sacred cows on both sides of the political divide. On the left, if you talk anything about minorities, just the colored ones, they could care less about any other ones. Those are the ones that they're kind of concerned about. And then the LGBT lobby. If you talk about any shit about that, the left, they'll go ahead and they'll ostracize you if you're on that side. But if you're on the right, or if you're anybody who's a populist, which I would very much include RFK into that conversation, you cannot be seen as disparaging women. That's first and foremost, okay? Why do you think all of the attacks from the DeSantis camp, just especially when they're targeting Trump, is always couched in, well, I don't know anything about paying hush money to porn stars. And take a look at his surrogate's behavior all over Twitter, and the fact that they got the one guy from the Babylon Bee fired because he asked Christina Unhinged Pushaw what the fuck is going on Twitter, and then he ended up getting removed because, oh, you can't speak to a woman like that. So yeah, you have that one bugaboo, and then the other one is, well, a juice. Why do you think Mike Pence? Just peek his social media timeline and you'll see that guy just bending over backwards, grabbing his ankles for dem boys over in the Middle East. I guess he didn't hear that all that Adelson money ended up going to the DeSantis camp, so you're definitely kvetching up the wrong tree. Because, I don't know, man, this has just become a big problem recently. I think it was all just kind of kicked off because Kanye brought up some uncomfortable questions, one specifically, but we don't need to delve into that right now. But Johnny Bench makes insensitive anti-Semitic joke at a Reds event. Who's Johnny Bench? Well, if you have to ask yourself that question, I don't want to associate you as being a real sports fan, but Johnny Bench is one of the greatest catchers, of all time. One of the integral members of the Big Red Machine from the 1970s for the Cincinnati Reds, and yes, a man of a certain time, and he was making a joke. Like, not even that offensive of a joke, but he strung together 4 little letters, and oh my god, that's causing a stir for the Cincinnati Reds. So don't you guys kind of have a bit of a history about this kind of... Anyways, Johnny Bench made an anti-Semitic joke. Well, the Reds honored former general manager Gabe Paul at the team's Hall of Fame induction news conference on Saturday. Former MLBer, and he's a Hall of Famer, for Christ's sakes, okay? He had one of the highest percentages of a first ballot Hall of Famer you're likely to ever see. Outside of that inordinate amount of love for Mariano Rivera. Yeah, he had a cutter, okay, but did he deserve to be the first 100% inductee? Yeah, I don't think so. Cincinnati legend Pete Rose told the story of how Paul signed him for $400 per month out of high school. Someone in the room exclaimed, "That's cheap," to which Bench 75 responded, "He was Jewish." Yo, man, that's funny. And drew laughter from those in attendance. But of course, dem boys caught wind of it, and then he had to walk back his comments because of this franchise's original sin. The 14-time All-Star and former Reds catcher issued an apology on Sunday for his comments, specifically remorseful to Jeannie Paul, who's in attendance, representing her late father who died in 1998. So he wasn't even alive to get offended? Like, what the... Oh my god. I recognize my comment was insensitive. I apologize to Jeannie for taking away from her father the full attention that he deserves. Yeah, but everybody was laughing. Like, come on now. And geez, she looks like she could actually take a joke, so I don't know who was offended by this. Gabe Paul earned his place in the Reds Hall of Fame. Same as the others who stood on that stage. I am sorry for some of the focus of an inappropriate remark instead of solely on Gabe's achievement. Jeannie reportedly said she didn't hear Bench's comment. Oh my Christ almighty. See other people getting offended on behalf of the Brotherhood. But it did mention Paul's Judaism when speaking about her father on Saturday. Oh my god, he's a part of the clan. Yeah, man, Johnny Bench is in his 70s. That's the least offensive thing that he probably could have said, and especially given the fact that he's a former Cincinnati Red, and the owner of the Cincinnati Reds, not during the time of the Big Red Machine, but, at the time when they ended up winning a championship in 1990. Some of Marge Schott's comments, that definitely would have got you canceled back in the cut. If you don't know who Marge Schott is, yeah, she used to own Cincinnati Reds, a scandal-ridden affair, and then she was kind of Donald Sterling 1.0. I gotta run that story back, because that one's been a minute, and even though he was one of dem boys, that entire situation was very, very weird. He was the former owner of the Los Angeles Clippers, and he ended up having a tussle with Magic Johnson, which goes to show you that, there's certain privilege with dem boys, but the moment that you start going up against the more powerful minority that's out there, it's the NBA after all. They can go ahead and foist you out for any reason that they just create, and then move it over to, the former CEO of Microsoft, Steve Ballmer. Yeah, nothing weird about that situation. Like I said, I got to run that back at some point in time. Okay, so yeah, here's the pertinent part to the interview. She sits in a bed making picture frames to match her furniture as she falls asleep, only to wake up half an hour later to smoke another cigarette. She's a lady of a certain time, remember. Finally, she rises fresh from a good night's nicotining, ready to seize the day. Because she's set apart from the world like that, it's no wonder Schott's political and social views have not really changed since the Edsel. Over the years, as she has insulted homosexuals, only fruits wear earrings. Oh, it's not that bad. Okay, blacks. Dave is my $1 million... What's that word? I can't quite read that word. I don't know what that says. She said of Dave Parker, a Reds outfielder in 84 to 87. And Jews! He's a beady-eyed Jew. Oh, okay, cool. She said to Cincinnati's marketing director, Cal Levy, starting to unleash the exhaustive biography of Schott written by Mike Bass in 1993. As for Adolf Hitler, sorry, what? Wow, we just went from 1 to 100. She takes a compassionate view. Oh boy, halfway. He was okay at the beginning, she said. He rebuilt the roads and made the trains run on time? Is that what you're going to go into after this? Say, he rebuilt all the roads, honey. You know that, right? He just went too far. Oh, see, she got a realistic view about things. 2 weeks ago, she repeated that opinion in an interview with ESPN, setting off a storm of protests, including outrage from the Anti-Defamation League and other Jewish organizations. See what happens? Like, that's nothing on what Ye was talking about, saying, I love Hitler. I love Hitler. She was just memeing back in the 90s saying that, yeah, he made the trains run on time. He built the Autobahn. Boy, they were snazzy dressers. All of those same old rehashed lines. But of course, the moment that them boys end up getting tied up in the situation, not long after this, she ends up having to sell the organization. She does, in fact, turn a profit. And then a couple of decades after that, she ends up passing away. I don't have all the specifics or anything like that. It's not terribly pertinent. Her name was on a baseball facility in Ohio. And some people, not knowing the full context of this, end up signing a petition getting her name removed from history. All because feelings are the coin of the realm instead of trying to get to the bottom of the situation. What was she talking about back in the cut? Maybe some things that were a little bit unsavory for public consumption. I suppose. I wouldn't say so. But it is what it is. Ended up getting, a couple of hit pieces wrote on her. And then obviously some unauthorized biography by some other scum sports writer. Johnny Bench. Exact same thing right now. Oh, he's a man of a certain age right now. Oh, he said Jewish, and it's not in the most flattering light. Like they are our greatest ally. And then Robert Kennedy Jr. speaking some uncomfortable facts about viruses and the way that they can be worked on with gain-of-function research. And then all of a sudden, oh, that's very anti-Semitic, and we don't like any of those dangerous words that you're speaking. Stuff has been going on for a long time, and the more things change, the more they stay the same. The words might switch up, but if the offended parties are the same, well, their tactics tend to be the exact same way. So with all that said, thank you all very much for the gift of your time. I've been Don Consuelo. I want you to follow your gut and get after it. Take care, everyone.